Okay, question number 1. Global companies that deal with the political and financial risks of conducting business in a particular foreign location face which of the following type of risk? Country risk. This is true. Let us move in the reverse order so you make better understanding. Commodity price risk. This is the risk that relates to the volatility of market values of different commodities. So this is not specifically for risk associated with any particular country. Interest rate risk is the risk that relates to the volatility or fluctuation in the interest rate, and this volatility affects the value of your investment. Principal risk, on the other side, it is the risk that involves losing an investment. Then yes, it is a country risk. Country risk includes the risk you may face when you enter a new country, the political risk of that country, economic risk of that country, the risk that whatever you earn, you might not be able to repatriate to the home country, right? So there is a risk of expropriation also. Maybe whatever you invest might be taken away. So that makes A to be the correct option. Each of the following is an effect from opening markets to foreign investment. If you open your market for foreign investment, then all of these are the effects except one. An increase in the correlation of emerging stock markets with the world markets. This is true. This will happen. This is the effect. Emerging markets will become more correlated with the world market as globalization increases, as you open your markets for the foreign investment. This is true. So let me mark this as T. True. This will happen. A change in the volatility of emerging stock market returns. This is true as well. Now let me explain why is it true. Emerging markets on their own tend to be highly volatile. But when such markets integrate with the world markets, this integration will lower the volatility, it will lower the flux. So that is true. What about C? Decrease in local firms' cost of capital. This is true as well. Local firms will be able to obtain funds at a low cost. Why? Because when there is increase in growth and demand, this would lower the cost of funds. Higher potential for profit will lower the return required. So that makes this statement to be true. What about D? A decrease in investment growth rates. This is incorrect. Investment growth rates will increase. Why will they increase? They will increase through globalization, because there will be more opportunities for returns, more opportunities for investment, and there will be more returns. So this statement is incorrect, and that is why it is our right option. A significant decline in the exchange rate of the US dollar generally will have which of the following effects? Let us see. This is dollar now against the foreign currency. The comparative size should tell you what has happened. Pound, let's say yen. Now if dollar becomes weaker, then the US based products will be cheaper for foreign buyers. It will not hurt US business, rather it will help US businesses. Export prices will fall, so the commodities, the items will be more attractive for the foreign buyers. So exports will increase, so it will benefit the US businesses. This is incorrect. It will benefit US importers? No, it will not benefit US importers, because US importers will have to give lots and lots and lots of dollars to purchase pounds and yen for the foreign import. So this is incorrect. It will hurt. When the dollar weakens, it will hurt US importers. Wrong. It will benefit US exporters. That is correct. Because when the exchange rate declines, your currency becomes cheaper. When foreign pounds and yen come, they will purchase lots of dollars, and these lots of dollars will purchase lots of locally made products. Hence, it will benefit US exporters. What about D? It will make foreign goods cheaper for US consumers. No, it will make foreign goods expensive for the US consumers, because they will have to pay lots of dollars to purchase UK or the Chinese or Japanese made goods. So this is incorrect. So the correct statement is C. NAFTA offers trading partners. What is NAFTA? NAFTA stands for North American Free Trade Agreement. So it's basically an agreement between Canada, Mexico, and the United States that created a trilateral trade bloc in North America. The agreement came into force in 1994, and it was originally signed in 1988, and then it was superseded in 1994 under the new agreement. So NAFTA offers trading partners operating within its boundaries, Canada, Mexico, and the US, reductions in tariffs on products in exchange for compliance with the limits on imported labor and materials used in the manufacture of those products. This practice is also known as a foreign trade zone. Basically, foreign trade zone is a physical place. It's a physical location in which the tariffs, the custom duties, are waived off on certain imported products until they leave the zone. Foreign trade zones anticipate delay rather than a reduction in tariffs. So basically, you just delay the tariffs, not the reduction. Tariffs are not reduced. Rather, they are delayed until the point where you are within the location. When you leave, then these tariffs will become active. So this is not true. What about C? We'll discuss B later. Value-added tax. Value-added tax basically is an additional tax, or called the incremental tax. It is not a reduction in tariff. Value-added tax is a like of sales tax. GST, it's like GST. International rebate. This is again incorrect, because rebate is a partial refund to someone who has paid too much tax or too much rent or whatever. So this is a ridiculous term in this context. International rebate is not a tariff reduction practice. Basically, then it has to be B then. What is B? Sourcing requirement. Sourcing requirement refers to content or value added limits on the percentage of labor or the percentage of material used in the imported products. So you have to follow these limits, and if you follow these limits, if Canada, Mexico, and US, they follow these limits, then it will result in tariff reduction. So I repeat, sourcing requirement involves limits, value-added limits based upon the percentage of labor or the percentage of material that is used in imported products. And if the partners countries within this arrangement NAFTA, if they follow these criteria, these specific limits, then it will result in tariff reduction, and that is B. B is the right option. Two companies make handcrafted wooden ducks and rocking horses. Information about each company's weekly production alternatives is as follows. Company Treasure can produce 60 ducks or 15 horses. Note both of these simultaneously. Gem, another company, it can produce 24 ducks or 12 horses. Production possibilities are linear. What are production possibility curves, or PPF, production possibility frontier? It is the concept discussed in economics. Let me just give you the idea. Let us first consider for the company Treasure. The company Treasure can produce a maximum of 60 ducks or 15 horses, and this is their production possibility frontier. They can either produce 60 ducks or 15 horses. If they fully utilize their resources for producing ducks, they can produce 60 ducks. Else, if all resources are used in producing horses, they can produce 15 horses, or they can select any combination between these, right? So this the linear production possibility frontier means the opportunity cost is the same. Like, let's say if you just simplify this 60:15, it will give you 4:1. Means if you want to produce an additional horse, you have to remember this is for ducks and this is for horses. If you want to produce one horse, you will have to give up 4 ducks. Or if you want to produce one duck, you will have to give up 1/4 of horses. And this proportion stays the same along all these points on this line, right? This is the production possibility linear curve. Normally the curve we study in economics, it is this way. That's not the issue we need to discuss right now. For the other firm, let us take a different color. Now for Gem, the situation is different. For Gem, let us draw this somewhere here. For Gem, it can produce 24 ducks or 12 horses, and this is their production possibility frontier. Now if you simplify 24 ratio 12, it will be 2 to 1. Now what does it mean? If they want to produce one additional horse, they will have to give up 2 ducks, or to produce one additional duck, they will have to give up 1/2 of a horse, right? So if you just see the sacrifice, who's making greater sacrifice? For treasure, they have to give up 4 ducks to produce 1 horse, and for gem, they will have to give up 2 ducks to produce 1 horse, which means 1 horse. So it means the more sacrifice is being given by treasure, so treasure should focus more on duck because they are more efficient in producing ducks, and comparatively gem should focus on producing horses because they are good at producing horses because they have less opportunity cost. Treasure has more. Treasure will have to give up more ducks for horses, but gem will have to give up less ducks for horses. So the gem should focus on horses, treasure should focus on ducks, and that would make D to be the correct option. It says the annual market for ducks in the relevant shipping range is saturated at 4160 ducks, which is well above the production limit. Like 60 ducks a week means, let's say if there are 52 weeks, maximum production could be 3120, which is way below this number. So no problem, this is irrelevant. Treasure and Jump enter into a trade agreement according to the principle of comparative advantage. Which company should produce which product and why? We have just agreed to it. Treasure should produce ducks and Gem should produce horses. Treasure should produce ducks because it only needs to sacrifice 1/4 of a horse. 1/4 of a horse compared to Gem's 1/2 of a horse. So that's the idea we have just discussed, and we conclude that they should focus on these respective products. A country's currency conversion value has recently changed from 1.5 to the dollar to 1.7 to the dollar. 1.5 rupees per dollar, and now the rate is rupees 1.7 to the dollar, which means rupee has depreciated against the US dollar. So let's say if you're talking about rupee based in Pakistan and rupee has slided against US dollar, rupee has depreciated, which means the Pakistani exports to the US would improve because the price export prices have fallen. More dollars could be used to purchase lots of rupees, so Pakistani products will look cheaper, exports will go up, imports from the US will fall. But on the other side, those sitting in the US, they will find Pakistani product to be very cheap, so the imports of Pakistani goods in the US will improve. There will be more imports, but exports, US products will appear more expensive in Pakistan, so exports to Pakistan will fall. So that's the idea we have understood. Let us see what the question is all about. Which of the following statements about the country is correct? About the country, Pakistan. Its exports are less expensive for the United States, and that's why its exports go up, which is in fact the US imports. This is correct option, and you shouldn't look no further, but let us just read the remaining options and convince that we have done the right thing. Its currency has appreciated. No, the currency has depreciated. Its imports of the US goods are more affordable. No, imports are now more expensive. This is incorrect. Its purchases of the US dollars will cost less. No, now more rupees will have to be paid to buy the dollars. This is incorrect as well. A massive earthquake and tsunami seriously damaged the productive capabilities of auto manufacturers in Japan. Japanese automakers, they are in trouble. Their production plants are shut down. As a result, workers at the US parts manufacturing firm dedicated to supplying the Japanese manufacturers are furloughed, means they were given leave because the parts produced in the US plants are temporarily unneeded. Now let's say what the whole situation is. This is Japan and this is USA. Japanese automakers, they had to shut their production because of serious massive earthquake and tsunami, and these automakers used to purchase parts from US manufacturers. Since the plants are shut down, we don't need parts. So since the US manufacturers of parts, they don't sell as many parts to the Japanese automakers now, so they have to reduce their production. Reduction in production means they will have to excuse or just send some of the employees on on leave because the parts produced in the US plants are not needed. The negative impact of the Japanese earthquake and tsunami on these US parts manufacturers is best described as which of these options? First, transaction risk. This is incorrect because transaction risk is the risk that the settlement of a specific transaction with a foreign buyer or a seller might result in a loss for you. So this is not what we are discussing here. Economic risk, on the other hand, it is a risk in general that the volatility in exchange rate can put your transaction into losses or gains if you consistently buy or you consistently sell to your foreign partners. So this is not what we are discussing here. Global sourcing complication. That is correct. Global sourcing will be in trouble. The reduced production in the US factories because there is a disaster in Japan, it's an example of global sourcing complications. That is the right option. What about D? A shift in the economic balance of power, just like a shift of economic power from the US to China, China versus US. So that's a totally different ball game. We are not discussing the balance of economic power in one country or another. Company A and Company B are subsidiaries of Company C, a multinational company. A has a fixed corporation tax rate of 15% and B pays 25% of fixed corporate tax rate. All right. A sells components to B at a price that could be 100 to 200. A is the seller, B is the buyer. Which of the following statement is correct regarding the transfer price from A to B? Now this is a good question here. Remember, where the tax rate is lower, from this country the selling price, if the higher, it will result in overall lower tax payable for A. Now A should sell at 200 because at 200 the more income will be taxed at a lower rate. And this 200, which is the sale for A, is the purchase for B. This 200 high price will lower the income for B and he will have to pay then a high tax rate. So in other words, the basic idea is that the firm that is under a low tax rate jurisdiction, it should sell at a higher price so that the income is taxed at the lower rate. And this price, which is high price, becomes cost to the firm B, and this high cost will lower the profits for Company B, and the Company B will have to pay 25% tax, a high tax rate on the low income. So this is the best option, D. Transfer price of 200 will maximize after tax profit of A and C, the subsidiary. So D is the correct option. The transfer price set by a parent or subsidiary for goods or services most likely can be used by multinational companies to do what? Let us see one by one. Transfer as much of the cost as allowable to the country with the lowest overall tax burden. When you transfer the most of the cost to the country where the tax burden is low, so that low tax burden on already lowered profit, because when you transfer cost to the other country, the profit falls, lower profit taxed at lower tax burden will not be beneficial for the company as a whole, for the multinational group as a whole. Transfer funds from subsidiary located in a strong currency country to a subsidiary located in a country with depreciating currency. This would not help either, because transfer prices are not set with the goal of transferring funds from subsidiary with a strong currency or to the depreciating currency. We want to figure out the profit and the corresponding taxes payable in these different jurisdictions. So this is not right. Transfer as much of the cost allowable to the country with highest overall tax burden, not the lowest. Yes, transfer cost to that country where the tax rates are high, because when you transfer more cost to that country, the profits will fall, and on those lowered profits, even you have to pay a higher tax rate, it won't result in more tax payable. So look no further. This is the correct option. And what about D? Let's see. The transfer price set by a parent or subsidiary for goods or services most likely can be used by multinational companies to change the financial statements of individual subsidiaries. This is wrong. Transfer prices are not set with the intention of changing the financial statements of individual subsidiaries in the different tax jurisdiction. This is a ridiculous option, hence reject it.